All right. Do you see the right version of the slide? Yes. Okay. Cool. Let me just move things around here. All right. All right. Well, good afternoon, all. So, as Roxy mentioned, I'm April Brunn. I'm a Coastal Resources Specialist too with our local waterfront revitalization program here at New York Department of State. I'm going to give you an overview of some Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure, or OPDCI, funding opportunities that you all may be interested here at the Cayuga Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization. Just as a heads up, these slides are based off of last year's RFA. So just for some context, so round 2 of our Bond Act funding is expected this year, and the EPF LWRP RFA is usually released in May with the annual CFA cycle. So first, I'm going to go over our local waterfront revitalization program funding. So at its core, the local waterfront revitalization program provides technical and financial assistance for planning and implementation projects which achieve more resilient and accessible waterfront communities. So eligible applicants must be a village, town, or city located along New York's coast or a designated inland waterway. Counties or regional planning councils may also apply with the written consent and on behalf of one or more eligible villages, towns, or cities. Applications submitted by a county or regional planning council are required to attach a letter or resolution from each eligible village, town, or city participating in the project, which demonstrates their consent and support for the county or regional planning council to submit an LWRP application on their behalf. To be eligible for funding for projects such as feasibility studies and design, the applicant must be currently preparing or have an approved LWRP or LWRP component. For Cayuga Lake, you have the Cayuga Lake Watershed Restoration and Protection Plan. To be eligible for funding for construction projects, the applicant must have an approved or substantially complete LWRP or relevant LWRP component. Again, you have your restoration and protection plan. So just so you have an idea here, so this map is from our Geographic Information Gateway, and it shows the eligible water bodies around Cayuga Lake and all of the office's grants that have been awarded around the lake and surrounding areas as of probably a couple of weeks ago was when I pulled this map. So I'm going to go over our 2025 LWRP funding. We do anticipate changes to the RFA this year, so I'm going to say this multiple times, but reading the RFA, the request for applications, is critical. But I will share again what the 2025 one included to give you an idea of what we fund. So funding was available for the following grant categories: preparing or updating a local waterfront revitalization program, including updating an LWRP to be more resilient to climate risks, preparing an LWRP component, including a watershed management plan, and implementing an LWRP or LWRP component. All proposed implementation projects must be located within the plan or program boundary, so within the Cayuga Lake watershed. For design and construction projects, applicants must provide proof with the application that all final design and construction work will be performed on public property or where a permanent public interest, such as a public access easement, has been established prior to the grant application due date. In 2025, the minimum state assistance request was $50,000 and the maximum state assistance request was $2 million per grant application. Eligible applicants may submit more than one grant application. State assistance awarded will not exceed 75% of the total eligible project costs, with 25% local match required. If the project is located in an environmental justice area or a disadvantaged community, the project may qualify to receive 85% of the total eligible project costs, with a 15% required match. So each year in the RFA, there are priority points, so please, again, refer to the RFA once it's released to see what this year's priorities points will be. Applications to fund design and construction of wastewater treatment infrastructure or herbicide application are not eligible for funding and will not be scored. Site control does not need to be established at time of application for planning, feasibility studies, preliminary design up to 30%, or similar projects which do not include final design and/or construction work. So again, since the RFA is anticipated to change this year, I highly recommend referring to the request for applications once it's released in May for more detailed information. So now I'm going to move on to our office's Bond Act funding opportunities under the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act with our DOS administered programs and projects. So under the Restoration and Flood Risk Reduction allocation of the Bond Act, DOS offers support for 2 project categories. So that's the coastal rehabilitation and resilience, which 20 million was available for round 1 on that one. And then the inland flooding and LWRP implementation, there is 15 million available in round 1 for that one. Both of these project categories offer 90% state assistance. There are differences in the eligibility of applicants and project types. So if you have questions on that, please refer to the RFA once it's released. So round 1 was awarded and administered during 2025, and round 2 will be administered and awarded this year. So for both our LWRP implementation projects that I talked about in the first few slides, and generally for the Bond Act funding pots, all generally support the same eligible activities that are listed here. But there are other potential project types for all funding pots. So there may be other items that aren't listed here. But just to give you some ideas of what was awarded for Bond Act in round 1, that included dam removal projects, culvert replacements, stream restoration, stream bank or shoreline stabilization, stormwater drainage improvements, and pump station upgrades, marsh restoration, increasing resiliency of site access. And I did look, and there was one project within the Cayuga watershed for the village of Waterloo, and they're going to be doing some eastern storm sewer system improvements. So now on to some of the project priorities and requirements for the Bond Act funding pots. So for all of the Bond Act projects, the department is prioritizing applications that support or are inspired by nature or natural processes and also offer environmental, economic, and social benefits while increasing resilience. Applications submitted by cooperating applicants addressing regional issues and projects demonstrating a direct benefit to disadvantaged communities identified by the New York State Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, and to projects that demonstrate the incorporation of the New York State DOS resilience principles in the development of projects. The DOS resiliency principles provide a straightforward way for communities and practitioners to understand and apply different concepts that form resilience. So there's a QR code to the principles on this slide here. So now I'm going to go over some tips for applying for funding for our programs. So this is going to go over some tips for applying for funding with DOS, more so for the EPF LWRP, but again, make sure to read the RFA for each funding pot that you're interested in applying for. I'm also going to pose some questions, food for thought for this group to think about, and we could discuss that at the end of the presentation, or if you come up with any ideas, I am available to talk after the presentation as well. So to apply for funding, a municipality or county needs to sponsor the grant and letters of support from other municipalities within the watershed. While other groups such as watershed organizations, soil and water conservation districts, and nonprofits can be partners, they are unable to hold grant contracts within the LWRP program. So related to that is also whether there is capacity to hold a DOS grant, as there are contractual components related to grant funding, such as payment requests, periodic reporting, and so forth. It does require some capacity, either at the municipal level or from project partners willing to assist the municipality holding the grant. So just so you all know, Isaac's time can be included either as match or for reimbursement. Understanding the scope of the work that needs to be completed, DOS funding is highly competitive, and understanding the full scope is an important component of successful applications. There's also the option to phase projects. So if project details are unknown, or if it's easier to start with a feasibility study before applying for design and/or construction funds, phasing the project may be a good fit. Understanding the budget and costs of your project is vital to successful applications and projects. Applicants need to document an understanding of the costs they expect to encounter and plan accordingly. Once submitted in an application, DOS cannot provide additional funds to a grant, and reviewers examine applications to ensure that projects applied for can be completed with the budget they have provided. So DOS funds can be used for planning, design, and construction, and we are encouraging you to brainstorm some ideas for feasibility studies or design and construction projects that would be eligible for funding through our program. So to my understanding, Isaac has been involved with some work with Ian Smith, who is the Seneca Lake Watershed Manager. So, is there any of those projects that are ready for implementation? So I'm just going to go over some other successful watersheds, and then we can potentially talk if you want to at this point. So Canandaigua watershed has been particularly successful, receiving millions of dollars from DOS and implementing many resiliency and water quality focused projects, leveraging municipal equipment and staff to stretch state dollars to an impressive rate. So the picture here is from the Sucker Brook Stormwater Wetlands project that was funded through our program. Another successful watershed has been the Seneca Cayuga watershed. So our staff works with Ian Smith on their watershed projects. They have been extremely successful getting follow-up implementation funding. They have received funding to design a floodplain restoration project, create a watershed water quality protection manual, and a study to examine how to modernize Cayuga Lake level and develop a predictive water level response model. So as long as it's before the CFA opens, we can provide guidance on potential projects. And the maps here are from the Cayuga Lake bathymetry and then the topography of the Cayuga Seneca watershed from the Seneca Cayuga 9E plan. So I don't know if anyone wanted to stop and talk about anything at the moment. I also do have a few other slides, so we can do it at the end as well.
I just asked for clarification. Did you say Isaac's time could or could not be used as
It could, yep.
Could be. Okay, great. Thank you. Looks like David has a question also.
Yeah, April, if municipalities, say in my case, town of Ithaca and say the town of Ulysses partnered to try to take on stormwater management for the whole southern end of the lake, would there be any preferential treatment for partnered applications? Does that help? Does that help a municipality in any way? I guess that's the question.
So in the application, there is like questions for demonstrating the local capacity. So I would say in those questions to like demonstrate that this partnership will help you be able to, complete the project and do the contract requirements. And one municipality has to be the applicant. So you can partner, but one has to be the lead.
Great.
So that's it. Any other questions or thoughts at the moment? Alrighty. I'm not hearing anything, so I will go through the rest of my slides and then we can talk more at the end. Alrighty, so I'm just going to briefly go over some of the other funding opportunities that are available in our office. So through our Community and Economic Development Division, they have additional funding opportunities. So two are through the Environmental Protection Fund and the Consolidated Funding Application. So there is the brownfield opportunity areas and then the smart growth. So keep an eye out for that when the CFA opens in mid-May this year. So through the BOA program, known or suspected brownfields are transformed from liabilities to community assets that generate businesses, jobs, and revenues for local economies and provide new housing and public amenities. The Smart Growth Program offers municipalities the opportunity to plan and zone for their community by addressing all aspects of smart growth. So through the Smart Growth Program, communities can come in for either developing or updating their comprehensive plan, and then they can come in for zoning as well. So then the other two pots that CED works with is through the state's budget, which is $100 million towards Downtown Revitalization Initiative, or DRI, and then the New York Forward. So the Round 9 DRI and the Round 4 New York Forward was announced last September for applications. Applications were due in November, and the winners are being announced this spring. They've already announced a few of the winners as well so far. So this is an intense planning process that will proceed to develop a strategic investment plan for a community, and then some of the projects in that plan will be implemented out of that $10,000. So this is led by the Department of State with assistance from Empire State Development, Homes and Community Renewal, NYSERDA, and NYSERDA. The DRI in New York Forward represents an unprecedented and innovative plan, then act strategy. So again, it invests $100 million in 10 downtowns. For DRI, that is one in each region. For the New York Forward, it's at least 2 communities per region, and sometimes it tends to be more than that as well. So I have links and QR codes here that will bring you to more information for each of these programs. And then my last slide here is just some resources available, including a link and QR code to the New York State Consolidated Funding Application, or the CFA, that I mentioned throughout this application or this presentation. And then the DOS's funding and bid opportunities page, where you can find any current RFA information and last year's RFAs as well for reference. But again, note that the RFAs can change and usually do change slightly year to year. So reading through the RFAs in full every year is imperative to not only understand the current priorities, but to receive maximum points in your application. I've also linked the DOS's watershed management website if you're interested here in learning what other watersheds are doing, and a link to our geographic information gateway that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, and if you're interested in exploring the layers available there. So that was my last slide. So thank you. And again, if there's any questions or any other project ideas that you want to discuss, I am available at the moment and also after the meeting as well.
I have a question for a couple of those ones you just mentioned, Downtown Initiative and New York Forward. Those are fall opportunities, both of them?
Yes. Yes, typically it seems like the DRI and the New York Forward is in the fall, and then they announce the winners in the spring.
Okay, so I'll look for that at a different time frame.
Mhm.
I feel like I had one more question, but I know one of them was what David asked, if municipalities could work together cooperatively on a project, and I guess they can, but there's just one lead applicant.
Yeah.
Are there other questions for April? Yeah, go ahead, David.
So, in terms of understanding timelines, in terms of you mentioned some of these applications are going to be available in May, but you haven't really mentioned deadlines. Is there a source, a document, some link that you can provide for us for all of these funding sources that provide for us when the applications are available and when the deadline is?
Yeah, so the consolidated funding application website will provide the deadlines that are through the CFA. The CFA is normally in mid-May, and the applications are due by the end of July. For the other programs, the only one I can think of, and it's not in here, so I can send it afterwards, is there is now a website for the Bond Act, and I think all of our programs have been fed into that website for the grant opportunities. So I think that would be the best way to look and see when things may be due. And it may change year to year, but to at least get an idea. So I can send that afterwards to Isaac to share out.
Great, thanks.
Mhm.
Has anyone been thinking about larger scale project or something that's normally outside the scope of your budget that you might want to pick April's brain about?
Oh, it looks like someone shared the link in the chat. Thank you.
No one jumping on that big question. I feel like I had another one. Oh, there's another one in the chat there asking you to speak more on New York Forward, and is a pro-housing designation required?
I am not that familiar with New York Forward and the requirements. I believe there is a pro-housing designation requirement, but I would refer to the links that I provided in this presentation for what the requirements are. And if you have questions and you can't find the answers, feel free to reach out to me and I can direct you to the correct person.
Now he's going to offer up Isaac too. Kathleen, he could probably track that down for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, do you have any hints about any changes that might be included as priorities for this year's round of Bond Act and the waterfront revitalization program? Any changes? You heard anything?
I don't think much is changing with the Bond Act. The priorities for Bond Act will be the same. It just may be a little different how you'll be applying this year, since it's, a new program. For LWRP, I don't think we can say anything until it's released, unfortunately. So that's you'll know when it's released.
It's always awkward. People could talk to you about their idea for a project, but you really don't know if it fits the goals.
Yeah, I mean, our priority points, the last couple of times, it's only been 6 points, so it does affect the score of a project. But projects that don't meet those priority points still get awarded if it's a really good application and a good project.
Oh, that's good to know.
Mhm.
And I don't think you mentioned on these last four with the slide you have up, what is the match on those?
So I think for the BOA, the Brownfield Opportunity Areas and Smart Growth, those are both, I think, at the 90% and 10%. But I can confirm. And I don't know if there's any match requirement for New York Forward or Downtown Revitalization Initiative. I haven't heard of anything, but I would reference those materials to see if there actually is.
Okay.
Yeah.
They sound like great opportunities then.
Yeah.
I mean, all funding is a great opportunity, but little to no match is super great opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, I guess people are going to go back and think really hard about projects. And will we have a copy of your presentation? Can we have that? Is that all right?
Yeah, your meetings, are they open to the public? Or
They
is this
are.
just, okay.
Yeah,
I
and
will have,
they're recorded, and the recording does go up on a YouTube page of Cayuga County's Water Quality Management.
okay. I will double check, but I think I
Okay,
should be able to share.
okay, thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, well, you're welcome to stay with us because we're a really exciting group, but we also understand if you want to check out for the evening.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.